Hello guys, hello everybody. Hello. Hello guys. For those who are here, you are very punctual. So, how was your lesson few days ago, guys? Meanwhile, we're gonna wait for another 5 minutes to start the class, okay? Hello guys, hello. So we're gonna wait for a few minutes. We're gonna start the class. Meanwhile, you can prepare with your paper over here. I've uploaded to my Google Drive, so you can download the paper. Or if you have already gotten the paper or printed out, that it's the best, okay? Because I don't think a lot of students, they can just write it on a plain paper. But if you can, of course, you can just do it on a plain paper. If you don't have a printer or maybe you don't have any tablet, so maybe you can just print it out first if you have a printer. If you don't have, then maybe writing on a paper is the only choice lah. Lesson was difficult. It's already over. So right now, what you guys should do is to prepare your paper 3 on 16. Few more days to go. But I know everybody knows what is coming out lah. So that is not a very hard thing to study also. As you know, I know lah, okay? So hopefully that you guys are well prepared. Easily you can get the full marks for paper 3 for 3 subjects. Right. Okay, so hopefully people are coming in another 3 minutes. If it's not, we will just not wait for the rest of the humor because it's a YouTube and you can replay where you have missed out. Don't worry, the video will be here. And if you think that my speed is very fast, you can just wind it back, you know. Hello teacher, late 2 minutes. Okay, well, I haven't started the class yet. Still not very late yet. 老师那种 state difference 的题目是在 structure 题目还是 AC 题目是可以用 table 回答 Okay, so this question is a student who asked me, if you want to write difference, can you write it in structure or AC for table form? If you want to put it in a table form, it needs to be in AC question. For structure question, you cannot be in a table. Structure cannot be in table. Only AC question can be in the table form, okay? And your table form cannot just write keyword. You have to write short sentences for your table, for your AC question. But of course, if you want to do it in sentence form for both structure and AC question, it's your choice. You can do both in sentences where you have to write the word whereas lah. Whereas A blah 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 blah, whereas B blah 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 blah. So you have to put it into sentences if in a structure question. So if you think that your table is not very true, mean you don't feel very good writing table, just put it into sentences. But personally, I would prefer table because table is easier for a student to write and also for teacher to mark as well. Because your teacher can know what is the point that they can see from the table, right? But it needs to be in the short sentences. Hello, Rini. Hello, Calvin. Hello, Edwin. I see the core families. Hello, guys. Hello, the rest of you. So hopefully you guys are prepared for your exam soon. And I know some of the students just attended physics just now, physics booster class. Your brain is still functioning right now? I mean, it's 11 to 1 just now. It's like you have a 1 hour break. So I believe that your brain is still functioning. For those who attended the physics booster just now lah. I mean, with Junhan. Hello people, hello. I see a lot of names, not a lot of names. I see some names. There is my student. Okay. Hello. It's like I see my student's name in YouTube. I see my student name in Zoom. I see my student name in physical class. 50%. You can tell me your school. I mean, so that I know where you are from. Since we are just waiting for people to come in. Hello, 美女老师。哇，这个会聊天，我喜欢。Okay. I think we can start now. It's already 2:05. So people who come in already come in. People who don't want to come in, ask them to watch the recording video. If your friends want to watch, you can just tell them this is a recorded one. And you can just let them know that it will be here forever in my YouTube channel. Okay, so we can start now. Okay, now before I start the class, I have to let you guys know a few things. Number one, it will be fully English. There is no BM because I don't teach in BM, so it will be fully English, and I'll explain in English as well. So if you think that my speed is too fast, you can always wind back to look at what I have explained. Or if you needed me to explain in Mandarin, I will explain the keyword. Okay, if you don't understand the word in English, I can explain in Mandarin, but other language I cannot do it. Okay, guys. So it will be fully English. If you need me to explain in Mandarin, I can do it as well. But the sentence that we write, it will be English. Okay, but my English is the simple English that I will just explain. So it will not be a very difficult English because I don't teach English, guys. I'm a bio teacher. I don't teach English. So these are the few things that I want you to know lah. So today we are doing Mrsm 2021 paper 2. I know that some of our school teachers have already done this paper. I don't know whether you guys fully understand this paper or not. This is not a very hard paper. I would say medium lah. Okay, cannot say too easy, but maybe medium. Not to say very hard, but medium level. So if you are able to do the medium level, you can try some paper that is harder. But this year's state paper, not a lot of people that are also quite hard. A lot of people, they are quite easy, but this is the one that I chose over here is the medium level lah. We don't start easy, guys. Easy, everybody can do. Medium and hard, nobody, maybe some of you cannot do. Okay, so for question 1, diagram 1.1 shows a sequence of the organization of the cell in human. This is under Form 4, Chapter 2. Just in case if you don't know which chapter that you don't know, then you can refer to the chapter, okay? This is Form 4, Chapter 2. So they ask you to name tissue Q. What is tissue Q? You can see that cell P is a red blood cell, right? Red blood cell, it means P will be a blood cell. And then this will be a blood tissue, but they ask about Q, right? Now, what is Q? Q is also a tissue, but this tissue is a muscle tissue. How do I know this is a muscle tissue? Because muscle has 3 different tissue. We have cardiac muscle, smooth muscle, and skeletal muscle. So this tissue Q here is either these 3, right? What tissue is this? This is a smooth muscle tissue. This is a smooth muscle tissue. Because smooth muscle tissue, they have an eye-like structure. It looks like an eye. But if it's a skeletal muscle, it will be like that. Like, you know, something like that lah. Sorry guys, I cannot draw very well. But, you know, they are a skeletal, like a bone shape like that. It's called a skeletal muscle. If it's a cardiac muscle has a connection point. Something like that lah. Okay, I also cannot draw very well, but they have a connection point. They will look like a Y. Can you see there's a Y here? Y. You can see there is a H. So this is a cardiac muscle. So cardiac muscle has a connection point. So when you see an I, this is an I shape, it will be a smooth muscle. Okay, so we have the answer for Q, which is a smooth muscle tissue. And then next, name one system which consists of tissue Q. Which system consists of smooth muscle tissue? It will be either digestive system, or you can write blood circulatory system, because smooth muscle, they will carry out peristalsis, or they will transport blood. Blood vessel is a smooth muscle, and our peristalsis, the esophagus and small intestine, it requires peristalsis. As long as they are able to carry out peristalsis, it means that they are smooth muscle. So you can write either system. Guys, don't write the name. Don't write small intestine. You have to write the system. Either you write digestive system, or you write a blood circulatory system. Your choice also can, whichever that you prefer lah. Okay, next 1.2 shows a cross-section of arterial wall. This is artery. It means that they have thick wall and small lumen, right? This is the characteristic of artery. So we have tissue Q as well, which is a smooth muscle, because we all know smooth muscle can be found in the blood circulatory system. So let's say if you don't know the answer for this one, then you can get your answer over here as well. Because you know this is an artery, right? Then your answer should be blood circulatory system as well, if you don't know. So sometimes you have to be, you know, get some hint from the question. Some of the question has like a huge hint. So you have to get the hint, guys. The teacher already helped you like that. So you have to get the hint from the question. So you have to read through the question properly lah. Explain how tissue Q in arterial wall can lower the blood flow to target organ. So in order for you to lower blood flow, okay, now lower blood flow, it means that you have to slow down the blood flow. Slow down blood flow, it means that the lumen has to be smaller. Now we don't want to increase the pressure. We don't want to make sure that, because when the hole is bigger, there will be more blood flow, right? Imagine the hole is so big. Okay? When the hole is like the lumen hole is so big, there will be more blood flow. When the hole is smaller, it means that there will be lesser blood flow. So this one you can write to decrease the artery size, the lumen size of lumen of the artery, and also they will reduce the blood flow. So you can say tissue Q contract to decrease the size of lumen of artery. Vasoconstriction causes less blood flow. What is a vasoconstriction? Vessel can only be used in blood vessel. It's called vessel because we have vasoconstriction and vasodilation. Constriction, it means they become smaller. Dilation means they become bigger. So we call this as vasoconstriction. Okay, if you have any question, you can ask me because you know YouTube Live is slightly slower than Zoom. So when you reply the message, I will only see it maybe after 30 seconds to 1 minute. Okay, something like that lah. So if you have any question, you can ask me. So when I see the question, I can still answer you lah if you have any question. If it's not, then maybe I'll answer after class lah. Okay, so done with this question, we're going to move to the next part, which is C. A blood test shows that the number of cell P in an individual is below that normal. Explain the possible consequences of this condition of his health. Number of P, we have mentioned, right? P is a red blood cell. Decrease in red blood cell, we have a disease called anemia. So what does anemia cause to a person? Anemia means less of red blood cell. Lack of red blood cell means lesser oxygen. Lesser oxygen means that you have lesser energy. Why? Because cellular respiration rate also decreases. So the person has difficulty, maybe they have difficulty in breathing, shortness of breath. Maybe they have always pain, they get tired easily. That is the symptoms of people with anemia. People with anemia doesn't mean that they will die. Maybe they can just take iron. It depends on whether they are iron deficiency or sickle cell anemia lah. But if it's an iron deficiency anemia, they can just consume iron, they can go back to normal life, just normal activities lah. So this one you can say less of hemoglobin binds with oxygen that forms oxyhemoglobin. Lesser oxygen is transported to a body cell, causes rate of cellular respiration decreases. So you can say he faints easily, get tired easily, correct? The person get tired easily or faint easily because they cannot produce enough of energy. That's why they get tired easily. Rate of cellular respiration is the one that generate energy. That's why when you have lesser rate, it means that energy production will be lesser as well. Okay, now done with question 1, we're going to move to question 2. So next question will be enzyme question. Enzyme question is under Form 4, Chapter 5. Diagram 2 shows the reaction of enzyme X on the substrate. So based on this diagram over here, we have to label the enzyme's name and also the substrate name, right? Because the products they give it to you is a glycerol. Now we have to label first. We label the general name first because they label this as an enzyme. This one should be a substrate. Okay, not this one because we have to know enzymes are highly specific. This is this live will be saved? Yes, it will be recorded. The YouTube live will be recorded. I think you just came in because I just say. Okay, so substrate and enzyme, and then they will form into Y. What is Y? Y is enzyme substrate complex. Enzyme substrate complex. And then glycerol and this one will be a product. Generally, this is the name. So, 我还了解. Okay, so in this case, what do we have to know is we have to identify what is the name of the enzyme and what is the name of the substrate, right? So we know that the first product is a glycerol. The other product should be fatty acid because we have a product called fatty acid and glycerol, right? And then we have to name the enzyme. The enzyme should be lipase. The enzyme should end with ASE, be sex protein enzyme. So all of the enzymes end with ASE. The substrate will be lipid. Or if you want to write fat also can now, okay? Fat also can. So Right now, we have the name for enzyme, we have the name for substrate. So for Y, we cannot just write enzyme substrate complex. Why? Because at this moment, we have the name. So we have to put the name together as lipid lipase complex. Lipase, sorry, what did I say? Lipase lipid complex. Okay, lipase lipid complex because it's enzyme substrate complex. Okay, that's why it will be lipase lipid complex. You have to name the enzyme substrate complex, and also we have to know which one is the log, which one is the key, right? Who is the log? The log is the enzyme. The key will be substrate. You have to always remember one thing. When you put a key into a log, which one will break faster? Of course, it's the key that breaks faster, right? Will you break the log more often? Of course, it's you break the key more often, right? So when you break the key more often, of course, the substrate will be the key. And then the substrate can only form into two products. The question asks you to name what is X and Y. We have the name for X. X is lipase. Y is lipase lipid complex. Okay, lipase lipid complex. If you have name, you have to write the name. You cannot write enzyme substrate complex. If the question has no name, only you can write this, okay? Next, we have based on diagram 2. State 2 characteristic of enzyme. They say based on diagram. Whenever you say base, right, you have to base on this diagram. You cannot write enzymes are protein because we cannot see. You cannot write enzymes as a catalyst. Can you see from this reaction they are fast? Cannot, it's a paper, guys. You cannot see anything from here. So what you can write is enzymes are highly specific. What does highly specific means? Highly specific, it means that this part here, I don't know where I can see the green color part. Okay, this part here, they have active site. They have a specific active site. We call this as highly specific. Only enzymes, you have to write enzymes are highly specific and they have active site. The other characteristic that you can see from this diagram will be enzymes are not destroyed at the end of enzymatic reaction. Because you can see this one, it remains the same. When it remains the same, it means that they can be reused. The other characteristic that you can write is enzymatic reaction is reusable. Reusable, it means only when you see two arrows. If some of the question, they only give you one arrow, you cannot write reversible because it's not, okay? So if it's only two arrows, you can write the enzymatic reaction is reversible. So usually what would I suggest is, no matter whether it's based on diagram or not based on diagram, the answer, the confirmed correct answer will be highly specific and not destroyed at the end of enzymatic reaction. Okay, so you can see enzymes are highly specific and enzymes are not destroyed at the end of enzymatic reaction. So these are the two answers. It doesn't matter whether it is based on diagram or not based on diagram. You can always write this answer. So this is the safest answer to write. Okay, you can also write enzymatic reaction is reversible, but it depends on question. Okay, B2, the medium for enzyme X reaction change to pH 3. What will happen to the active site of X? So they say this reaction change to pH 3. We have to know the original optimum pH for lipase. Lipase can be found in the duodenum. So if they are able to found in the duodenum, it means that the optimum pH will be pH 8.5. Okay, pH 8.5 because in the duodenum, we have lipase, we have pancreatic amylase, we have trypsin, right? The optimum temperature is pH 8.5. So from pH 8.5, they decrease to pH 3. So obviously this is what happens when we call this as enzyme denature. But if it's a pH, we will talk about the charges of the active site. Because enzyme in pH, they will denature, they will renature. What does renature means? They go back to the original shape because enzyme is supposed to be in 3D shape. But for pH, we will say the charges of the active site changes when they are in not optimum pH. So if you want to talk about the enzyme denature, it's also correct. But enzymatic reaction will stop lah. Eventually, the entire thing will stop because the substrate cannot bind with enzyme. When substrate cannot bind with enzyme, they cannot form enzyme substrate complex. They cannot break down into two products. So the reaction will eventually stop. But we can talk about the situation first. pH 3 is acidic, right? So you can say medium becomes acidic and enzymes denature. So we explain based on this thing where you can say that the active site of enzyme changes the charge for a substrate that causes, don't say for lah, for active site of enzyme changes the shape, changes the charges, causes substrate unable to bind with it. Then you can say substrate cannot be broken down, products cannot be produced. Hello, for those who just came in. Yeah. Okay. So this is how we explain for pH value. So if it's not pH, you don't need to talk about the changes of the charges, okay? This one don't have to talk about if it's not pH. If it's just a normal denature, you can just write the active site of enzyme is destroyed and causes the substrate unable to bind with it. The substrate cannot be broken down, products cannot be produced. If it's a temperature, okay, you can change your way of using the sentence. Then you will notice actually everything is the same, but you just change a few words, then you can use the answer for all of the question. Okay, now done with this one, we're going to look at the next page, our next question, question 3. Question 3, it says 3.1 and 3.2 shows activities performed by two individual S and T. So this is Form 4, Chapter 7 under respiration. So we can see a person is running and a person is resting. They ask you the type of cellular respiration that is carried out by muscle cell of individual S and T. So when a person is running, obviously this is not an aerobic respiration. We call this as a lactic acid fermentation. So for individual S is lactic acid fermentation. Okay, and then for T, the person is resting. Resting, you're not doing anything. This is aerobic respiration. Okay, aerobic respiration. So these are the two respiration that can be carried out by human. Human, we cannot produce alcohol fermentation. We cannot produce alcohol when we run. If we can produce alcohol when we run, we don't have to sell alcohol anymore. We just run to get high, guys. Save money. Okay, complete the word equation for the respiration process in diagram 3.1 and 3.2. Okay, so we just fill in this table lah. So you can see the person is running glucose and then you have energy. What is over there? If you know the answer is lactic acid fermentation, then you should know that the person produced, they will have lactic acid. Lactic acid. And then the other one, aerobic respiration. Glucose plus oxygen is a complete oxidation of glucose. They will produce energy and they will also produce carbon dioxide and water. Okay, you cannot write CO2 and H2O. Why? Because this is a word equation. Word equation, no chemical formula. No CO2, no H2O. You have to write carbon dioxide and water. Unless they ask you to write in chemical equation. But usually for respiration, they don't ask in chemical equation. It's because that maybe you never learned this word before. But for you to know, glucose is C6H12O6. Lactic acid is half of glucose, is C3H6O3. Energy for human when we run is only 150 kilojoule. And then for the person that's not doing anything, we know that glucose is C6H12O6, right? And then carbon dioxide, you should know is CO2 lor. O2, write everything lah. C6H12O6 plus O2 form into carbon dioxide, water, and the energy produced is 2898 kilojoule per 38 ATP. 38 ATP, this is 2 ATP for lactic acid fermentation. Either one, you can write 2 ATP, you can write 150 kilojoule, you can write 38 ATP, you can write 2898 kilojoule. Unless you don't remember the number, then you don't write the chemical equation, because I think most of the time they only ask word equation. Okay, so we have done with B. Let's look at C. According to the expert running coaches, he said that to become a faster and stronger runner, it is important to stay consistent with the training schedule. Based on statement, explain why an individual is able to run faster after intensive training. So why do you think the person can run faster? The reason why we can run faster is because that we need to generate more energy, right? So when you run faster, number one, you will produce more mitochondria. When you're able to produce more mitochondria, it means you're able to generate more energy. Of course, if you are athlete, you have to go for hiking. No, you have to run at a higher altitude, because when you run at a higher altitude, your body will produce more hemoglobin. But in this case, we don't explain about hemoglobin. We explain about the mitochondria. Okay, the reason why you have to train at a higher altitude, as I mentioned, when you have more hemoglobin, it means that you will not start your lactic acid fermentation when you run. I mean, if you don't care, then it's okay, because if you're not a runner like me, I don't run, I don't do sport, I just live my own life, then it's okay, guys. You don't have to care about it, but you have to care for your SPM lah. I mean, you know what to write for exam lah. So you can say that these enable muscle to generate, produce lah. Produce more energy, because, not energy, more mitochondria, because later I want to write the energy, right? That's why I use the word produce. Generate, I will use for energy. So you can say rate of cellular respiration increases. These enable more energy can be produced. Or you can say more energy in the form of ATP also can. In the form of ATP also can. Okay, done with C, we're going to move to question 4. Question 4, it says, diagram 4 shows a synapse that separate the synaptic knob from the neurons dendrite that receive the impulses. So this is under Form 4, Chapter 13. Okay, so Form 4, Chapter 12. 13 is homeostasis. Chapter 13. So under Form 4, Chapter 12, we learn about how impulses are being transmitted across the synapse. We have to know 3 parts about this. Number 1, we have to know this is what we call as, okay, it's called synaptic knob. Some people also know it as a presynaptic knob. You can write pre-synaptic knob, or you can just write synaptic knob, will do so. And then next, in the middle, we have synapse. I just highlight over here lah, synapse. Next one, we have post-synaptic knob, or you can say dendrites, other dendrites, okay? So we call it axon terminal and dendrites. So whichever one lah, which I think pre and post is easier. If you want to write axon terminal and dendrites of other neurons also can. Okay, maybe I'll just write that. Okay, axon terminal and dendrite of other neurons. So we have 3 parts that we have to know, because these are the 3 parts that we have to explain later. Besides that, we have to know what is inside. So we can see this one is a mitochondria, and then J is a vesicle. As long as they are vesicle, it contains of certain things. What do they contain of? I mean, so what they are known as first, they are known as a synaptic vesicle. Synaptic vesicle. Every vesicle contains of things, no matter whether they are what, transport vesicle or secretory vesicle, it needs to contain of certain things. This synaptic vesicle contains of a thing called neurotransmitter. So K will be neurotransmitter. Okay, K will be neurotransmitter. There are many examples of neurotransmitter: noradrenaline, dopamine, acetylcholine, serotonin. So you have many examples, but there's only 2 examples that which I want you to know, which is number 1, we have dopamine. Okay, the first neurotransmitter that I want you to know is dopamine. Number 2 is acetylcholine. Acetylcholine. Why? Because these two, when you lack of dopamine and acetylcholine, it will cause you to have certain disease. So you lack of dopamine, you will get a disease called Parkinson disease. Okay, lack of dopamine, the person will get Parkinson. Lack of acetylcholine, the person will get Alzheimer disease. So we have Parkinson, we have Alzheimer. That's why we have to know this dopamine and acetylcholine. The reason is because that you have many other example of neurotransmitter. Only these 2, it will have disease. That we learn in disease. I cannot say we have disease. We only learn these 2 diseases related to these 2 neurotransmitter. That's why these 2 are more important if you want to talk about example. So we know the example, we know the name. And then we have another part that we have to know over here. We call this as a receptor. This part here is a receptor. Receptor is the one that receives neurotransmitter. Only the impulses can be transmitted to another neurons. Because we have 3 neurons in total, right? Sensory neuron, interneuron, and also motor neuron. So we have 3 neurons in total. So maybe this one is a sensory neuron. This is a relay neuron, which is the interneuron. So you need to have 2 neurons in order for us to transmit nerve impulses. Okay, what are J and K? We know J is a synaptic vesicle, K is a neurotransmitter. Don't write example, just write the name. Synaptic vesicle and neurotransmitter. Parkinson disease is an example of health issue related to nervous system. Symptoms in Parkinson disease are due to a loss of neurons that produces type of K in the brain. Name type of K and involved and state the symptoms of Parkinson disease. So we have mentioned Parkinson disease, lack of what? Lack of dopamine. We have mentioned, right? Parkinson, lack of dopamine. So people with Parkinson, they have few symptoms that we can see quite obvious. Number 1 is tremblings of their hands, the limbs and the leg. Tremor means shaking. We don't call shaking for Parkinson, we call it trembling. Tremor means shake, so they will shake, okay, it's called Parkinson. Number 2, they have difficulty in moving around to balance their body. So maybe when they walk, they have tendency of falling down. In this case, maybe they have a tendency of falling down. So that's why this is a symptom of Parkinson. So number 1, we have to say that K is dopamine. Okay, and then you can say the person experience difficulty in body balance. And the other one you can say he or she has tremors at limb. Limb refers to hands and legs. It's called limb. Hands and leg is called limb. Okay, tremors at the hands and leg. Okay? Okay, up to this part. Any questions? Up to, I think this is question 4, right, if I'm not mistaken. Up to this part, any question you don't understand? Okay, any question you don't get? I'll wait for you to reply me, even though it's delayed 30 seconds. Any question you don't get from this part? Anybody? I know it delays, but I'm gonna wait. So if you have any question, you can type at the comment box so I can know that which part you don't understand. Can? Okay, I think if you think that I speak too fast, as I mentioned, you can now wind back to see. But if you already used to it with my student, I mean, let's say you're my student, I think I already slow down a lot, I mean, to compare to normal class. So if you think that I'm too fast to some of you, you can always wind back to see, okay? Okay, no question. We're gonna proceed to the next question, which is question 5. Sorry, one more question I didn't see C. Okay, C, explain the effects of painkiller on nerve impulse transmission across the synapse. So when the person take painkillers, they will stop. Of course, when you have painkiller, they don't, what is painkiller? Painkiller is the one that stop you from feeling pain, right? It's called painkiller, right? So why do you stop you from feeling pain? It's because that you literally stop your nerve impulses from transmitting to the next neurons. When you don't receive any neurotransmitter or you don't receive any nerve impulses, you don't feel pain. That is the function of painkiller. And usually painkiller, they will bind with the receptor at the postsynaptic knob. So when it binds over here, all other neurotransmitter cannot bind with the receptor anymore. That's why you don't feel pain. We can only feel one sensation at one time. So it's either you feel pain or you feel itchy. That's why we always do the cross when we feel itchy, okay? When we feel itchy, you will do the cross because you feel pain. So this is how it actually works in our body. So you can say that painkiller binds with receptor at postsynaptic membrane. Membrane and knob is the same thing. Membrane is just the layer, is called membrane. Knob, it means the entire thing is called knob. Transmission of nerve impulses stop causes neurotransmitter unable to diffuse across synapse. These causes unable to form new impulses. Okay, so this is what happens when a person takes painkiller. I mean, obviously, this is how a painkiller works, right? If painkiller cannot stop you from getting pain, then it's different. Don't tell me how come the Panadol cannot stop my heart from getting pain from a breakup, guys. They don't work like that, okay? So painkiller don't work with your heartbreak, okay? Only works for your physical pain, not your mentally pain. Heartbreak is a mentally pain unless you have heart attack, okay? Okay, question 5. Diagram 5.1a and 5.1b. Okay, this is B. Shows two action of antibodies on antigen. This is under Form 4, Chapter 11. Just in case you don't know, this is Form 4, Chapter 11 under Immunity. And they give you two diagrams, 5.1a and 5.1b. Name the cell in the body that produces antibodies. Okay, now, before we try this question, we have to identify what immunity is this. Because under third line of defense mechanism, we have different immunity, right? We have different type of action towards the antigen using antibodies. You can see the first 5.1. 5.1 antibodies bind with the antigen and it will break down the antigen. Just in case you don't know what is antigen, antigen is a protein found on the harmful microorganism. So it's like an identification, it's like an IC. To know that you are a bad guy, you are a bad person. Okay, maybe I ask you, maybe to know that you are Malaysian, you need to have Malaysia IC, right? That is your antigen. Antigen is identification. So to know who you are. So to know this is a bacteria, the antigen will be here to tell you, oh, this person here, this thing here is a bacteria. So this antibody will recognize the antigen. So as they recognize the antigen, they will bind with them and then they will break down. So breakdown in scientific word, we call this as lysis. So this action is called lysis. Breakdown is called lysis. So they will break down. Next, the other one, same thing, they have antigen, they have antibodies. So the antibodies recognize this antigen, this thing, is a bad guy. So they will bind with it and then they will form into a clump. This, when they stick together and they form into a clump, we call this as agglutination. Agglutination. How do you know this is agglutination? Because they glue together. It's called agglutination. They glue together. Eventually, this agglutination, it will be eaten by a phagocytes, which is white blood cell, which is under second line defense mechanism, because these are third line defense mechanism. So we have another few more type of action in between antibodies and antigen. We have opsonization, we have neutralization, and we have precipitation. So we have other example, we have 5 in total. So the one that carry out phagocytosis, it will be these 3. These 3, it will be eaten by the phagocytes, means eventually they will be carry out, I cannot write, I just write phagocytes, okay? Eaten by the phagocytes, CYTE. It will be eaten by phagocytes. Precipitation, they will form into a precipitate. So they will form into a maybe sec product like that, like precipitation. It's the insoluble antibody-antigen precipitation. So they will form the precipitate. Okay, now name the cell in the body that produces antibodies. The cell in the body that produces antibodies, we have to write the specific name of the cell. If you are thinking, oh, white blood cell, white blood cell is not a correct answer because white blood cell, we have 5 types. Which exact white blood cell produces antibodies? The white blood cell that produces antibodies is known as a lymphocyte. And you have to know this, out of so many white blood cells, lymphocytes is the most important one. I always tell my students, out of 5, if you don't know, choose this one to write. Choose this one to write, you have 60% to get it correctly. If you write what? Neutrophil, basophil, the chances of you getting correct is very low. Usually, they will ask you about lymphocytes, monocytes, and neutrophil because neutrophil and monocyte, they are second line defense mechanism, they are phagocytes. But lymphocytes is the strongest white blood cell because they are able to produce antibodies. So if you guess this answer, 60% you will get it correctly. If you write what? Basophil, chances of you getting correct maybe 5%. So it's very low. Maybe lymphocytes has a higher chances of getting correct. So remember, lymphocytes, important, white blood cell, is white blood cell. Name the action of antibodies on antigen in 5.1a and 5.1b. So we have named the action. X is lysis, Y is agglutination. And then next, 5.2 shows an information about the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine under National COVID-19 Immunization Program. 80% of nation's population will be inoculated in the biggest ever vaccination exercise in Malaysia. So we have these Pfizer-BioNTech, okay, or Pfizer, which is your Pfizer lah. Okay, I think everybody of you get Pfizer, or you get the Sinovac, right? Because Pfizer and Sinovac is okay. The producing is different lah. We will talk about that when we're free, but it's okay. It's not gonna ask in the exam anyway. Teacher, can I write cell T? Cannot. You cannot write cell T because it's not specific. You can write T lymphocytes. If you want to write, you can write T lymphocytes, but it's not cell T, okay? Name the type of immunity obtained by injection vaccine into the body. Any injection that is not by yourself, or I will consider this as a fake thing. I cannot say fake lah, but fake. We call it as artificially. So as long as it's not by yourself, okay, it's known as artificially. This is artificially active or passive. Obviously, this is active. Why is this active? It's because that you produce your own antibodies actively by yourself. So it's an artificially active immunity. Teacher, may I know what is the difference between agglutination and precipitation? The products is different because agglutination, okay, I cannot say the product is different. The antibody used is different because agglutination and precipitation, they have different antibodies and they have name for that. So you can look up to Form 4 Chapter 11, and also you will notice that precipitation, the products form from agglutination is also different. So name of white blood cell is different, products is different. That is the difference between agglutination and precipitation. But both of them, at the end of the day, they will also use phagocytosis lah. Okay, explain why an individual is required to take second dose of vaccine in order to complete immunization. Anything about vaccination, you have to write a word called level of immunity. Why you have to take second dose? Because you have to make sure that your white blood cell produce enough of antibodies. Your antibody production is above the level of immunity. What is level of immunity? Imagine this is your line and you have a dotted line in the middle. Okay, this is your graph. Usually this is how a graph looks like. The first injection and second injection. So if it's first injection, you don't pass this line. This line we call it as level of immunity. When you get second dose, only you will pass through the level of immunity. So this is the important thing you have to know about vaccine. All of the thing related to the word called level of immunity. So you can say second dose act as a booster dose. Second dose act as a booster dose. Okay, not the booster dose. Okay, because right now we're also taking booster dose, right? But in your syllabus, second dose is already known as a booster dose. But second dose, in order to have a complete vaccination, you need to have 2 doses. But it depends on certain vaccination. Some vaccination, it takes 2 doses. Some vaccination, it takes 3 doses. I mean, not saying COVID-19, I'm just saying a general vaccination. 2, 3 also can. But for COVID one, you have 1, 2, 3 lah, okay? 1 vaccination also got, 2 vaccination also got. It depends on the brand of the vaccination. Act as a booster dose. It will increase stimulation of lymphocytes to produce antibodies. Antibodies production needs to achieve level of immunity. So we have to always talk about the level of immunity. Either you write needs to pass or needs to be above the level of immunity, also can achieve, also can whichever lah, how you want to explain, as long as it's taller, it's more than the level of immunity, then it's okay already. So we have 1, 2, 3. Okay, 3 sentences, not a lot also. Okay, now done with this one, we're going to move to the next page. Next page is also about vaccine, about COVID also. Not only COVID, actually all of the vaccination is the same idea. Just that right now COVID is a thing. That's why they use COVID. It can be other disease as well. But the concept is the same. 5.3 shows the community which to form a herd immunity. It means that everybody get vaccination. We will have this thing called a herd immunity. So because explain how a herd immunity stops the spreading of COVID-19. When a person got COVID and you are a person with fully vaccinated, when you get the COVID, right, you will have a mild symptom and you don't really spread it to other people because you have a higher level of immunity. That's why everyone should get vaccinated. I don't know any one of you have this mindset of I need to be anti-vax or not lah. Because I know people who are anti-vax. I don't even know how they go also lah. So if you are anti-vax, the chances of you getting COVID-19 is equal as normal people, but the severity will be higher than people who are vaccinated. So if you're not vaccinated, all I can say is go and get your vaccine, guys. You need to live a normal life. Go and get your vaccine. It will be just a normal flu in the future. If you don't want to get pneumonia and die at a young age, please go and get your vaccination. If you are a person who anti-vax lah. But it's a bit funny. If you're anti-vax and you're still learning biology, it's a bit then you should get the idea of vaccination is very important. Okay, so get your vaccination. So you can say that vaccination or vaccinated close contact may not severely infected by COVID-19. Next, unvaccinated people get indirect protection from COVID-19. These able to break the chain of COVID-19 and the community become immune to COVID-19. So that's why vaccination is important. Go and get your vaccination. So don't tell me you're anti-vax because you're anti-vax in Malaysia when you are born. You already get your vaccination when you are born. You have a scar on your left hand, it means that you're vaccinated before. So you're not supposed to be an anti-vax because you already got vaccination. Okay, so now done with this one, we're going to move to the next question. Next question, we are at question 6. Diagram 6.1 shows a type of response in a plant. This is under Form 5, Chapter 5, under Response. Response in plants, Form 5, Chapter 5. So when we talk about response in plants, we have two different response. You can mark it at the page. Okay, I'll mark it over here because we have more space over here. So we have two things. Number one, we have tropism. Number two, we have Nastic response. Tropism response and Nastic response. So for tropism, we have 5 examples. Number one, we have thigmotropism, we have geotropism, we have hydrotropism, phototropism, and chemotropism. Nastic response, we have photonastic, we have seismonastic, we have nictinastic, we have thermonastic, we have thigmonastic, okay, thigmo. So what are these? All of these response and Nastic all of these response, right? They are reacted to a certain thing. For example, let's say thigmo response. Thigmo response, they have a reaction towards touch. Okay, geo is towards the gravity, hydro is towards the water, photo is towards the light, chemo is towards the chemical. It can be fertilizer, it can be pollen, it's called chemical. So for Nastic response, photo is still referring to light because photo is always light. Seismo, they refers to touch or raindrop, such as your mimosa pudica. When you touch, it closes it. That is seismonastic. Nictinastic is onset of darkness. Onset of darkness are usually refers to a leguminous plants. So they will curl their leaf. It's only for leguminous plant for nictinastic. Thermonastic is based on temperature. So when you have high temperature or low temperature, they will open or close the petals. Thigmonastic is referring to vibration. So thigmonastic is for carnivorous plants. So when there's insect, they vibrate and then they will close it. So they are able to get the insects for carnivorous plant like Venus flytrap or pitcher plant. So it's use a tick more Nastic. So tropism and Nastic response, what is the difference? You have to know the characteristic of tropism and Nastic response. Tropism, number one, they depend on direction. So they have to see where is the water. Let's say the water is on the left side, then they will move towards the left side. If the water is on the right side, they will move towards the right side. This depends on direction. Then the other one, they are growth dependent. It means they will use this as a way of growing up. They are slow. The growth rate is slow and not apparent. Means not obvious enough. It takes a very long time to show that it's very obvious. Slow and not apparent. And then the last one is permanent and irreversible. Reversible. Sorry, I spelled the word wrongly. Reversible. Okay, so it cannot be reversed. And then the other way will be opposite law. Opposite means what? Opposite, it means that this non-directional response means they don't depend on direction. It's just got or don't have only, okay? If got, then they will open, don't have, they will close, like got or don't have. And then this is growth independent. They don't depend on this to grow. Independent. This is fast and more apparent. Means it's very obvious because let's say during daytime, they will open the petals. Nighttime, they will close. So within a day, you can see they keep on opening and closing. So it's very fast and more apparent. Next, we have temporarily and reversible. Guangqian asks, what is the difference between seismonastic and tickmonastic? Okay, now for seismonastic and tickmonastic, a lot of seismonastic and tickmonastic. Okay, seismo is touch and raindrop only for the Mimosa pudica. Tickmonastic only for carnivorous plant. So the example is different. So you can remember as example lah. Seismonastic, remember they will always give you Mimosa pudica. And then for tickmonastic, they will always give you carnivorous plant because they use vibration. And then they will close for eating purpose. So they will eat the insects when they feel the vibration. So the example will be different. Okay, done with this? Okay, so these are the example that you have to know the characteristic of the response that you have to know as well. So based on this diagram, you have to know what is this. We have before and after. They ask you to write the example. So do you think, okay, maybe we answer the question first, okay. Table 1, mark one characteristic response shown in 6.1. Okay, now, what response is this? Is this a tropism or is this a Nastic response? And you can see you have a light over here, right? And the time duration is what? After 1 week. 1 week is a very long duration. It's not got light, I move towards directly. No, so it's a very long duration. So this is under tropism because tropism is lower, right? So this is a phototropism. Phototropism. Okay, so because it takes 1 week, it's not today got sunlight, I today move. It's not like that. So this is a phototropism because it takes a longer time. And they ask you to choose one characteristic. The response is quicker and apparent, obviously it's not. The response is temporarily and influenced by the plant's hormone, of course it's not as well. The response direction depends on the direction of stimulus. Yes, only this is correct. If you base on the characteristic that we wrote just now, only this is correct. The rest are under Nastic response. Based on 6.1, explain the role of auxin in the response. Okay, now based on this question, you have to explain about auxin. Because this question we have sunlight, we have to know that sunlight, they don't like auxin, okay? They will move away from sunlight. Okay, they will move away from sunlight. So what is the function of auxin in the shoot and root? So auxin is to promote elongation of stem, right? With, okay, maybe I write over here. I write with other color, okay? So they will promote elongation. Okay, they will promote elongation. So with auxin, they will grow faster. Without auxin, they will grow slower. This concept is same to your sunflower. So because they don't like sunlight, they will move away from sunlight, right? So at this part over here, they will hide over here. So this part, when they bend, I cannot see. So because it's too tiny, okay, when they bend, they will bend towards this direction. Okay, maybe I draw over here. Because sun comes from this direction, right? So the auxin will move towards the left side over here. And the one in red color, it means got auxin. The one in blue color, it means no auxin. So the auxin will move towards this direction. Here got auxin. Why? Because auxin don't like sunlight, so they will move away from sunlight. So on the left side, they will grow faster. So when they grow faster, it will bend towards the sun. It will bend towards the sun, okay? Because on the left side, you have more auxin. They will promote the growth of the shoot. That's why they will grow towards the direction of sun. Okay, so in a sentence, you can write, auxin move away from bright region to shaded region. Auxin accumulate at shaded region, and the cell on the bright side elongate faster. The shoot bends towards the direction of sunlight. So we have a name for this. We call it as positive phototropism. But if you don't want to write positive phototropism, it's also correct because we have already more than 2 marks already. So if you want to write, it shows a positive phototropism, your answer is still correct. Okay, so this is the answer for auxin. Okay, now next question. It says, plant leaves contains many types of photosynthetic pigments that absorb light and has a color. Diagram 6.2a and 6.2b shows 2 methods of growing flowering plants in greenhouse. This is under Form 5, Chapter 2 under photosynthesis. Because in photosynthesis, we actually learned that which light ray, they will absorb maximum, they will have a maximum rate of photosynthesis. Okay, we actually learned in Form 5, Chapter 2. The one on the left side, it shows this is a blue LED light and this one is a fluorescent light. So what is the difference between these two? We only look at the color, guys. The color is blue LED light. And they ask, explain the difference on the rate of photosynthesis between plants in 6.2a and 6.2e. Which one has a higher rate of photosynthesis? Obviously, it's 6.2a, 2a, correct? A, the one with blue LED. Why? Because blue LED, they will absorb by a color pigment called carotenoid. So they will be transferred to the chlorophyll later on. So they are able to have maximum rate of photosynthesis. Which color provides maximum lack of photosynthesis? The answer is red and blue color. Okay, I remark over here so you can know by yourself. I remark, I haven't write the answer, guys. Okay, the rate of photosynthesis is high in blue and red light. So why? Because red, they are absorbed by chlorophyll, and then blue is absorbed by the carotenoid. Carotenoid is orange in color and transfer to chlorophyll. And they will transfer to chlorophyll. So blue and red has the highest rate of photosynthesis. On shaded side. They are right the other way wrongly. Shaded side. Sorry. Shaded side. I write the other way round. Sorry, shaded side. Shaded side. Correct. I write wrongly. Okay, shaded side. Shaded side. Or you can write bright side, elongate slower. I don't know what I was thinking just now. But yeah, I write it the word wrongly. It's either you write bright side, elongate slower, or shaded side, elongate faster. Thanks, Guangxian. Okay, next, okay, now we have to talk about the answer for this, right? So let's explain your answer over here. Okay, so you can see the rate of photosynthesis in 6.2a is faster than 6.2b. Next answer is LED light produces more blue light that will be absorbed by plants' chlorophyll. Okay, so next time, doesn't matter where they will give you a blue light or red light. These two lights has the highest rate of photosynthesis, not green light, because plant reflected all green lights. So it's blue and red. Okay, blue and red has the highest rate of photosynthesis. Okay, next, in March 2011, Japan was struck with an earthquake and tsunami which caused a nuclear plant to breach and massive nuclear radiation to a local area. 6.3 shows the title of an article about action taken to clean up a radioactive waste in affected area. So they use sunflower to clean the radioactive soil in Japan. So Japan has a lot of sunflower. It's not because that is for nice, actually it's to absorb the radioactive substances in Japan, okay? Based on 6.3, define the phytoremediation. This question you have to base on this thing, which is sunflower. Phytoremediation means what? Phytoremediation, it means that they will use a method to clean up the substances they don't want, right? So right now you have to clean what? You have to clean the radioactive in soil. So we have to depend on this question, which is the sunflower and the radioactive soil. So we can say that it's a treatment method. Treatment method which uses sunflower to eliminate radioactive substances in soil. So we have to base on this question. Some other question, of course, you can use other example, which is the one they asked. Explain one example from another plant used in phytoremediation. We have many other plants that we can use. We can use water hyacinth, we can use water lettuce, we can use water spinach, okay? All of these plants, they will absorb different things. Okay, I'm going to write 3 other example. So let's say I write water spinach. Water spinach is your kangkong. Kangkong is used to treat waterways by eliminating heavy metal. Heavy metal means lead. Those are heavy metal. Next, we can write water hyacinth. Water hyacinth, not only water hyacinth, even for lamina species or even hydrilla species, it works the same. So water hyacinth is to absorb ammonia from water. Next, we have water lactose. Water lactose purpose is they will accumulate heavy metal and absorb nutrients. Heavy metal and absorb nutrients. So you can write either one, whichever that you prefer. If you want the short answer, then you write water hyacinth. But maybe because in exam, you cannot spell the word water hyacinth, maybe you can write water spinach, then you can write other example. Okay, so this either one also correct, but you have to make sure that you explain your answer in this case. Okay, now done with this, we're going to move to the next one, which is question 7 under Form 5, Chapter 7, Habitat. Form 5, Chapter 7. Okay, diagram 7 shows 2 plants, P and Q, in 2 different habitats. One is in water, one is near the sea, which is a mangrove tree. They say state the classification of P and Q based on their habitat. So if in water, in Form 5, Chapter 7, we only learn a few examples of plants. So if they are in water, we call this as a hydrophyte. So P is hydrophytes. Okay, P is hydrophytes. Q, they live it in a sea water, so it's salty. Salty for mangrove tree, we call this as a halophytes. Halophytes. Hydro means water, halo means salt, phytes means plants. State one problem faced by plant P in his habitat. Plant P, problems. This is the question. They didn't ask Q. They asked about P. P is a hydrilla species. They asked, what is the problem faced by hydrilla species? Number 1, they are in the water. In the water, maybe they get lesser oxygen. At the same time, maybe they have a water resistance, because sometimes we have water flow. The resistance is there. Water resistance is one of the problem as well. You can also write they have lesser sunlight. Maybe you have a floating plant, then the submerged plant will get lesser sunlight. So we have either one problem that you want to write lah. Okay, you can say that they receive lesser light intensity, and then you can also write they have low oxygen content. You can say they have water resistance. But if it's Q, which is a mangrove tree, then they have many more problems, because for mangrove tree, they are directly exposed to the sunlight. They have higher rate of transpiration. They always immerse in water, so that's why they have this anaerobic respiration. They are at the soft and muddy soil, maybe they will collapse. So for Q, which is a mangrove tree, they will have more problem compared to Q, compared to P. P is a hydrilla species. Explain one adaptive feature of plant P to carry out photosynthesis efficiently. So for hydrilla species, how do they want to carry out photosynthesis more efficiently? They have a small leaf. This small leaf able to break the water current, and also they have increasing of surface area to absorb more sunlight. Because surface area is bigger, total surface area over volume is bigger, they can absorb more sunlight. They have a higher rate of photosynthesis. So you can say they have thin and small leaves that increases total surface area over volume. Right, total surface area also correct. Total surface area over volume also correct, okay? TSA over V, total surface area over volume. And then your explanation, you can say the increase diffusion of water and minerals, and also dissolve gases directly. If you want to write other example also can, your choice to write other example. You can see that they have a hollow stem is to enable them to float upright, so they can have a lesser water resistance also can. Whichever you prefer. We have many answers for that. Okay, describe the importance of an ecosystem which is dominated by plant Q as a protective zone and fisheries resources. So we have 4 marks, 2 marks for protection zone, 2 marks for the fishery resources. This question, it can be in under Form 5 Chapter 9 as well, about ecosystem. Also can be Form 5 Chapter 10 as well. So you have to practice more on this kind of question because it's more common to be asked in exam. So your protection zone, you can say they can act as a natural barrier because we have 3 roots, right? The roots of the tree, they are able to break the wind, okay? The other one, you can say that they can act as a protective site for the small animals. Maybe you have prawn, crab, the roots, under the roots, they are able to protect them as well. So you can write, act as a natural barrier to lessen the impact, or to reduce the impact, like lessen a bit weird, to reduce the impact of strong waves and wind. Next, you can also act as protected site for small aquatic organism from predator. Fishery resources, they can make it into a aqua farm. Aqua farm means that the fishermen, they can have small aqua farm, so they have a lot of fishes, crab and prawn. It's the main source of income for fishermen. That's why we call it as fishery resources. So you can say mangrove swamp ecosystem have been converted to aqua farm. Aqua farm means water, means for them to have more fishes, prawn, and also crab or whatever, okay? So you can say it becomes a source of income for fishermen. For fishermen. So you can read up mangrove swamp, related stuff about mangrove swamp because it's important, okay? Anything related to mangrove swamp, you're going to read it through. Okay, now done with this one, let's look at question 8. Question 8 is under Form 5, Chapter 13, Genetic Engineering. Form 5, Chapter 13. Diagram 8.1 shows the production of insulin by genetic engineering techniques. So they ask you to define. Okay, now before we define, let's go through the process over here first. Number 1, they use human DNA and they isolated the human gene and they also isolated the plasmid from the bacteria. So when you want to isolate, you have to use a scissors. The scissors, we call this as, okay, we don't write molecular scissors. We have to write the name of the scissors, the cutting one. The scissors is known as a restriction enzyme. Restriction enzyme. Okay, so the restriction enzyme is to cut the human insulin gene and is to cut the plasmid. So when you cut, you have to glue together. So the glue has a name as well. We call this as DNA ligase enzyme. DNA ligase enzyme. So they will form into a thing called recombinant plasmid. Recombinant plasmid, okay? So this recombinant plasmid, they will be inserted into a bacteria. This bacteria has a new name right now. We call this as a transgenic bacteria. Transgenic bacteria. And then they will undergo multiplication to form into insulin. Before injected to human body, it needs to be purified. Only you can inject into human body. So they ask you to define the genetic engineering. What is the genetic engineering? Genetic engineering is a manipulation of your DNA sequence because you want to make it into a better product, right? It can be GMF, it can be GMO, genetic modified food or genetic modified organism. But right now we are talking about organism, right? So they can manipulate the genetic DNA sequence in new organism in order for them to form a new variation or new trait. So you can say it's a manipulation. Manipulation means change, okay? DNA sequence in organism. These produce new combination of gene with new trait. Traits means characteristic, character. It's called new traits. Okay, next. Explain how insulin gene is inserted to plasmid. Actually, in my own class, I did this question for 3 times. I think we did it for 3 times. But it's okay, we're gonna write it again for those who never write it before. So you have to say cut using what, glue using what, form what, put into what. Okay, so cut using what? You have to say cut using the transgenic, cut using the restriction enzyme. So you can say human insulin gene is cut using restriction enzyme. And then you have to cut the plasmid as well, right? The plasmid is cut using the same restriction enzyme. Then you can say insulin gene and plasmid are combined together by DNA ligase enzyme to form recombinant plasmid. To form a recombinant plasmid. This one, you also have to practice how to write the full sentences because we only stop at the plasmid. So you have to continue from the rest of the part as well. You have to continue by writing, they will be inserted into a bacteria where they will form into a transgenic bacteria. And then what happened next? All the way until the insulin is being purified, which injected into human body. because this is only 3 marks lah. Okay, next, insulin gene from human is inserted into bacterial plasmid. This bacterium will be cultured extensively to produce insulin. Based on above statements, state the disease that can be treated by insulin. The use of bacteria has been suggested in genetic techniques. Explain about the suggestion. So based on this thing, we have to talk about, you know, what disease can be treated. Obviously, if you use insulin, then would be what? Okay, I cannot wait for you. I forgot this is YouTube, it's not a Zoom. It will be diabetes mellitus, or we can say type 2 diabetes also can. But it cannot be diabetes only, because diabetes, we have diabetes insipidus. Okay, so this is diabetes mellitus. So you can treat diabetes. So what is the advantage of using this technique? Because this technique can produce in a larger amount. This technique can supply to a lot of people, can meet the demand to the people, and it can reduce the tissue rejection, and it can solve the people with allergy problem as well. Okay, we cannot just write diabetes anyway. We can write diabetes mellitus. So you can say diabetes mellitus. Okay, and then you can write bacteria able to reproduce very fast, able to reproduce very fast, to produce in a larger quantities. Next, you can say the cost is cheaper, and then you can say able to prevent allergy response in certain individual, because insulin produced is chemically same as insulin produced in body. Okay, I feel like YouTube live is more on talking to myself, because I cannot wait for your response. Waiting for a response takes about 30 seconds. And I feel like I need to wait for, every time if you wait for 30 seconds for me to wait for your answer, it's a very long time. Zoom, I can get immediate answer, but YouTube, I have to wait for the answer. Okay, anyway, this is question 8, up to question 8, structure question. Any question over here? Any question up to question 8, which is the structure question? Any problem? No problem. We're gonna start the essay question, okay? We're gonna do 3 essay questions for MRSM paper. Any question? Any question from these 8 structure questions? Any problem? 8 questions. God, don't have, God, don't have. No, yes, no, yes. Okay, wait, now I can wait. Now we can wait, because now 8 questions done already. I can wait for your response. No question? So many of you, only 2% answer me. I mean, not a lot, but yeah. Nobody has a question? Well, nobody has a question, sure or not? Okay, no problem. Then we're going to move to essay question. Okay, so let's start essay question. So essay question, we're going to do 3 questions, which is section B is 2, choose 1. And then section C, you have no choice to do it, right? You have to do everything, right? So for question 9, this is under Form 5, Chapter 6, reproduction. Plants reproduction, not human reproduction, for plants reproduction. So 9.1 shows a reproduction process in flowering plants. So for plants, okay, we have 3 processes when you talk about fertilization. The first process that they have is known as pollination. Pollination is where the insects carry, then it's called pollination. Number 2, we have germination. The third one is double fertilization. Double fertilization. So pollination is finding the right one. Germination is to carry out the process. Double fertilization is having the baby. So the sequence needs to be correct. If it's not correct, it means something is not right. Like human now, okay? Like, you know, if you want to have a baby, first you need to have a partner. No partner, no baby, guys. Okay, partner, and then the process, and then the baby. Okay, you cannot skip any process over here because you cannot have no partner and then you have a baby, right? Don't tell me test tube baby, yeah. Just the normal way of carrying out fertilization is 2 partners, right? Okay, so they ask you to what? Based on 9.1, explain process X. Process X is what? Process X, you can see we have flower P and flower Q. Flower P is a male flower, flower Q is a female flower. How do I know? Because for male flower, they have stamen, which is the anther and filament. For female flower, they have a pistil, which they have embryo sacs. This is the difference between a male flower and female flower. This is a male flower, this is a female flower, just in case you don't know what is it. So these insects carries the pollen to the stigma. What process is this? From the pollen to the stigma, obviously is the first process. We call this as pollination, right? Because you have to find a correct partner, right? Right now, the pollen grain found the partner, which is what? The stigma. And then they can only go to only go for germination, right? So this is a pollination. So pollination process is where pollen grain transfer to the stigma from a male to a female flower. So you can say this is pollination occurs where pollen grain is transferred from flower P to flower Q through pollinating agent. Through pollinating agent. Okay, next. Compare the reproductive organs between flower P and flower Q. Male and female both produces gametes. Okay, just this one is pollen grain, one is embryo sac. And the gamete produced needs to be in haploid as well. So both needs to carry out mitosis and meiosis, because if you remember, the nucleus of the pollen grain and also the embryo sacs, they carry out mitosis, right? Meiosis is where they form into a haploid cell because they have to form into 4 daughter cells. Only the 4 daughter cell nucleus carry out mitosis. So we can talk about a similarity. If you want to talk about 2 similarity, means you have to write 3 differences. If you want to talk about 1 similarity, it means you have to write 4 differences. Compare, contrast, you need to write differences and similarity. So for essay question, you can write in table form because I type this thing right. In exam, don't have this thing one, right? So you have to write similarity, blah, 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 and then differences. You have to make sure that your similarity and your differences is there. Cannot just write differences. If you only write differences, you don't get full marks. Maybe you only get 3 marks or 4 marks. Even though you write 5 correct differences, because you never write similarity. So you need to write similarity. If it's only differences, the question will say, differentiate, then you only write differences. But compare, contrast, you have to write similarity and differences. So we can write both produces gamete, and then you can say both undergo mitosis and meiosis. The nucleus carry out mitosis, meiosis is a daughter cell producer. So the difference between male and female flower, you can talk about the name and talk about the content of the male and female flower. So for male flower, we call this as a stamen. It consists of stamen. Okay, this one consists of a pistil or carpel. Consists of pistil or carpel. And then you talk about what is inside, right? What does stamen consist of, right? So this one, it has filament. Filament is the holder. Anther is the one that produces pollen grains. And then the carpel pistil, it has stigma. Stigma, they will produce a sugary substances called sucrose. And then they have style. Style is where the germination happens all the way to the style. And they will digest the style by using enzyme. And then we have ovary. And then we can talk about this one produces pollen grain. This one produces embryo sacs. Embryo sacs. Okay, these are the differences. So if you write 2 similarity, you have to write 3 differences. Usually similarity has lesser, differences has more, unless the question states which one, how many, which one, how many. Okay, now done with this one, let's look at the next question. Based on 9.1, explain the formation of seed after process X. Is it process X? Yes, process X. There's only one process X. I forgot to write the X at the back. X, okay? Process X means after pollination. After pollination, they have what process? They have germination, right? And then they have double fertilization. So pollination is where the pollen falls onto the stigma. And then germination is where they will start to form into a pollen tubes. So they will stimulate the nectar to form into a pollen tube, and then the pollen tube will move down to the style, right? So what moved down first? From the pollen grain, they have 2 nucleus. The first nucleus, we call this as a tube nucleus. Second nucleus, we call this as a generative nucleus. Can we see over here? Okay, we can see over here. Okay, we can see from this diagram. The one that goes in first is tube nucleus. And then for L is generative nucleus. But because this diagram, right, it shows 2 nucleus. So we don't write generative nucleus. What do we write? We write 2 male nuclei. 2 male nuclei because they point 2. Unless they give you 1. 1 we call this as generative nucleus because generative nucleus, they will carry out mitosis to form into 2 male nuclei. So if it's 1 generative nucleus, if it's 2, like that 2 is called a male nuclei. 2 male nuclei. So tube nucleus will move in first because they want to make sure that they can secrete enzyme to digest the wall of style, so they can move down to enter to the opening of the embryo sacs. The opening of embryo sacs, we call this as a micropyle. Micropyle. So when it enters to it, they will carry out double fertilization. What does it mean by double fertilization? The first fertilization happens in the egg. This is egg cell. This is polar nuclei. Okay, so egg cell, they will fertilize with the male gamete to form into diploid zygote because n plus n equals to 2n. Okay, the other one, polar nuclei, they will also fuse with male gamete. So when they fuse into male gamete, they will form into the triploid endosperm nucleus, or you can just write triploid nucleus lah. So what is triploid endosperm nucleus? Because this is 2n plus n, it forms into 3n. Only zygote is the real baby. Endosperm is the one that provides nutrients to the zygote. So it's called endosperm. Because the question wants you to write what? The question wants you to write how does it forms into seed, right? Seed, right? Who forms seed is the ovule. The number of ovules produced, fertilized is the number of seed produced. So let's say watermelon, you have many seed, right? It means that watermelon ovule are being fertilized. A lot of ovule of the watermelon is being fertilized. Only they will form into many seeds. Let's say mango, only 1 ovule is being fertilized, so there's only 1 seed. So it depends on the number of ovule that is being fertilized. Only you have number of seed. So the question is 8 marks, so we have to write a 8 marks answer. I don't know whether you have enough space or not, but you can just write it in the paper if you want to. So you can say after process X, the wall of enter from mature pollen will dry, string, and split. Pollen grain in pollen sac are released. During pollination, nectar in stigma stimulate pollen grain to germinate and form pollen tube. pollen tube grows down towards ovule through style. Meantime, generative nucleus will divide by mitosis to form two male gametes. Pollen tube will secrete enzyme to digest the wall of style. When it reaches embryo sac, pollen tube will penetrate ovule through micropyle. Tube nucleus will degenerate and male nuclei, or you can say L, enters the embryo sac. One of the male nuclei fertilize with egg cell to form diploid zygote. Another male nuclei fertilize with polar nuclei. It's nucleus, male nucleus, doesn't matter lah, singular, plural can lah, okay, with polar nuclei to form triploid endosperm nucleus. This process is known as double fertilization. And then the last sentence where you have to explain how seed is being formed, you can say ovule develop into seed. Ovule develop into seed. This is also the answer for double fertilization. This entire thing is also the answer for double fertilization. So actually, if you are able to write this, it means that you're also able to write double fertilization answer. Okay? It's only the first essay. So if you feel like your hand is breaking, it's okay. I can feel you also, guys. You have many more essay questions to write later, okay? Now, next question. Mr. John has planted the watermelon plants in cold climate area. He did the cultivation in a greenhouse so that the temperature is maintained at 25 degrees Celsius to ensure that his crop grow well. Unfortunately, the watermelon plants bear very few fruits. According to the agricultural officers who came for a visit, the pollination process by insects rarely occurs in greenhouse. He suggested one suitable technique to overcome the problem. Diagram 9.2 shows the watermelon produced at Mr. John's greenhouse farm after he applied the technique which was suggested by the agriculture officers. We can see this is a big watermelon, okay, and there is no seed. If you notice, no seed. Explain the technique and its advantage. What is the technique used? If you want to produce seedless fruit, the technique used is you spray a type of hormone. The hormone is known as auxin, okay? Auxin able to carry out a process called parthenocarpy, which is a seedless fruit process. What is the advantage? The advantage is you can use unfertilized flower. You just spray it onto unfertilized flower and then they will fertilize into a fruit. And there is no seed, right? It's easier for us to consume and you can maintain the genetic, you can maintain the variation that you want, the type that you want, whichever type that you want, you can also maintain. You can also write that it does not require any male flowers to carry out the process because they spray on unfertilized flowers. So male pollen grain is not required in this case because you can produce in a larger amount as well. It's similar to cloning, but it's not cloning, but similar to cloning lah. So this one you can write parthenocarpy. Parthenocarpy process is used, and then you can see they will spray unfertilized flower with auxin. It promotes the ovary to undergo repeated cell division without double fertilization. And then you can also say that they are able to form seedless fruits. Does not involve pollinating agent. And also, of course, if you want to write produce in a larger amount during a shorter time, also can. Produce larger amount in a shorter time. Okay, now done with this, we're gonna move to the next question. Okay, any question from question 9, guys? Any question from question 9? Okay, question 9, no question. We're gonna move to the next question, okay? I will wait for your reply, then we're gonna continue to the next question, okay? Any question from question 9? Okay, if you have no question, then we're gonna move to the next question. Okay, so for next question, question 10, this is under Form 4, Chapter 14, which a lot of students, they don't like this chapter because there's a lot of things to memorize, especially bones and muscle. But I would say the question, how they ask is similar. They only ask a few parts. They only ask about either hands or leg. Hands is easier. Leg, maybe you have to read through a little bit of the bones and the muscle, but it's not very hard, guys, okay, because you are the answer yourself. 10.1 shows the human leg movement from position X and to position Y. So from bending of leg to straightening of the leg. Based on 10.1, explain the function T. So what is the function of T? Okay, now T is a joint. So what joint is at the hip? The joint at the hip, we call this as ball and socket joint. Ball and socket joint able for us to move in all directions. Our shoulder is a ball and socket joint. Our hip is also a ball and socket joint. It's to allow us to move in all directions. So you can say this is a ball and socket joint. They will only ask you two joints. It's either ball and socket joint or hinge joint. Hinge joint will be the arm or the knee. So this one is to allow movement in all directions. Okay, and they ask you to describe the action of muscle, bones, and tendons during Y position. Okay, now we're gonna label over here first in order for us to write in sentences. It's easier that way. So label first, guys. Okay, now number 1, how do we label? So we know the muscle, right? Leg, we have 4 muscles that we have to know in exam. So they actually label tibialis muscle, calf muscle, right? And then we have to label what is X and R also. S, we call this as a quadricep femoris. And then for R, we call this as a bicep femoris. Okay, our hand also known as a bicep, right? So this one, the leg part, the part that you can bend, over here, also known as bicep. But actually, bicep femoris is only one of the muscle from your hamstring. We have 3 muscles in total at your hamstring, but bicep femoris is only one of the muscle. Okay, so this is bicep femoris lah. We just label bicep femoris. And then we have to know the bone as well. So what bone is this? This is a femur. The largest and the strongest bone in our body is called femur. And then this is tibia. Tibia is the one that is thicker. It's called tibia. And then the next one, we have fibula. Fibula, okay, tibia, fibula. Okay, these are the 3 bones that we have to know. Same goes to Y as well. So we have to know which muscle contract, which muscle relax. It's very easy, guys. How do you know which muscle contract and relax? When you bend, the inside one will contract. Like when you bend your arm, okay, your forearm, when you bend your arm, right, you will know that when you bend, this part here is contracting. This part here is contracting. So just remember, the part that you bend is the part that they are contracting. Okay, the other side, it will be the other way around because muscle work it as an antagonistic way, right? One contract, one relax, right? So if you want to move from X to Y, so just now, this part contract, right? Opposite way. It means this one here contract, this part here contract. The other side will relax. The other side will relax, right? Because when one muscle contract, another muscle relax, right? So if the front part contract, the back part will relax. So we have to put it into sentences, but we have to know how actually bones move. Bones move is because that we are able to transmit force through a tendon. From your muscle, which is this muscle, they will transmit force to your tibia. So when they transmit force to the tibia, only you can raise your leg upwards. So we have to know the name of the bone as well when we talk about muscle action. Not only your leg, even your hand is the same. If you don't know what is your tendon, you put your hand over here. Okay, here you can feel this part here, the rubber-ish, that one, it will be your tendon. It applies to all parts of your body. So we put it into a sentence. Remember, the question want you to write between muscle, bone, and tendon. We cannot miss anything out from this part. Okay, muscle, bone, and tendon. So first, we're going to talk about all of the muscle. Doesn't matter whether it's a human muscle or doesn't matter whether it's an animal muscle. All muscle work as a pair. The pair of muscle called antagonistic pair. So you can say muscle S and R works as antagonistic pair. So when S contracts, R relax. With muscle S contract, muscle R relax. These produce a pulling force to tibia that transmitted by tendon. Tibia is pulled forward and leg is straightened. And leg is straightened. So remember, talk about what? Muscle. And then we have bones, tibia, tendon. So you have to involve everything when the question asks. So you have to write everything over here. Now done with human, the next one will be animal. So 10.2 shows the skeletal system of a pigeon nestling. However, muscle queue in this pigeon nestling is not fully developed in the growth process. It means that this bird is still in the nest. It's called pigeon nest. It's a baby bird. It's a young bird. So based on this diagram, we have to know what is muscle P and Q first, and then we have to explain how does this muscle deficiency, this muscle affects the movement. So the bigger muscle, we call this as a major, called pectoralis major. Pectoralis means the chest muscle, pectoralis major. And then the smaller muscle called pectoralis minor. We have the big muscle and small muscle. So the big muscle is called pectoralis major. The small muscle is called pectoralis minor. So obviously this bird cannot fly because they cannot have an upwards movement. When you cannot have an upwards movement, you cannot generate up thrust. No up thrust means that the bird cannot fly. If you cannot lift your hand, right? Okay, if you cannot lift up, cannot move down, you cannot produce an up thrust. Up thrust means that when your wings move down, you have an up thrust. But when you have no up thrust, it means that the bird cannot fly. So this young bird, this baby bird cannot fly. So it's a bit sad, but no choice. They cannot fly. What they can do about it, right? Unless they go to the vet lah. So you can say muscle P is pectoralis major. Muscle Q is pectoralis minor. Next, you can say pectoralis minor, unable to contract, and pectoralis major, unable to relax. Force cannot be transmitted to upper side of humerus. And you can also say that wings cannot pull upwards. Or you can say unable to produce upthrust, the bird cannot fly also can. Unable to produce upthrust, bird cannot fly also can. So when the question is in abnormal condition, whatever function that you write, you add a word which is unable, then your answer is correct. If you write the normal function, then your answer is not correct because the question already said this is an abnormal condition. Abnormal condition means that whatever function you cannot carry out. So you're supposed to be what? Muscle R contract, muscle S relax, right? So you can say unable to carry out the function. Just write with the word unable or cannot. Every answer needs to include unable or cannot when the question is in this abnormal condition. Okay, now done with this one, let's move to the next one. C, 10.3 shows the movement of grasshopper and an earthworm. Explain one similarity and two differences between skeletal system in both organisms. So we have similarity and differences for earthworm and also grasshopper. What is the similarity between these two organisms? Obviously, these two organisms has a muscle. The easiest one is to have a muscle. So to have a muscle, it means that all of the muscle work as an antagonistic pair. When you have a skeletal muscle, it means that you need to have a muscular, muscle system as well, muscular system as also. So if you want to talk about the skeletal, both also have skeletal. The skeletal, it works as a support mechanism. We have exoskeleton and we have hydrostatic, right? So both are also under support mechanism. Whichever that you want to write, either you want to write about skeletal or either you want to write about muscle. Because in differences, we will also talk about the muscle and also talk about the bones, okay, which is the hydrostatic and also exoskeleton lah. So you can write both have a pair of muscle. Muscle work as antagonistic pair. Okay, muscle work as antagonistic pair. Antagonistic pair means that one muscle contract, another muscle relax. The differences between grasshopper and earthworm, number one, we can talk about. One is hydrostatic, one is exoskeleton. So this is exoskeleton. This is hydrostatic skeleton. And we have to explain our answer. So you can see that this one act as a support and they will protect body organs. If you want to write enable movement also can, because all bones works the same. Enable movement. And then for hydrostatic is to maintain a rigid body shape. The other one we can talk about the muscle name. So you can say the muscle are flexor muscle and extensor muscle. And then for earthworm, the muscle is circular muscle and longitudinal muscle. Muscle are circular muscle and longitudinal muscle. Okay, so you can say when one muscle contract, another muscle relax also can, or you can say the movement, one is by jumping, one is by peristaltic wave. So you can say the movement is jumping, or you can say leaping also can if you want to. And then the other one, you can write the movement is by peristaltic wave. Peristaltic wave, similar to human esophagus and also our small intestine. Okay, so this is earthworm. So this question, it covers human, it covers bird, it covers grasshopper and earthworm. There's only one part that they didn't cover, which is the fish. But it's a good question. At least we can expose to a lot of question over here. Okay, next one. A student had a car accident and his femur was fractured. The orthopedic who treated the student has given him a new treatment technique by injecting a solution of carbon nanotubes at the fractured femurs. The tubes serve as a scaffoldings for bone tissue growth. Scaffolding means it's a temporary support only. Yeah, it's only temporarily means they will either degenerate or it will be a biodegradable substances. Carbon nanotubes scaffolds are used for bones regeneration due to their properties of weight, strength, and similar to the main components of a bone tissue. And they ask you, discuss 4 advantages and 1 disadvantages of this technique. So what is the advantages? What is the disadvantages? In this question, I know that you've never seen this thing before, but in this question, you can get some hint. Number 1, they say what? It's used for bone regeneration for their properties of weight. Number 1, weight needs to be light enough, because if it's heavy, your bone cannot move. Because if it fracture, of course, it needs to be light enough, right? The strength, okay, it needs to be strong enough, because if it's not strong enough, right, they cannot maintain the structure of the bone, right? And the similar to the main components, it means that they will have a lot of collagen for regeneration of bone tissue. So by knowing strength, weight, and main components, you have 3 advantages already. Of course, if you want to write other you need another advantages, right? So another advantages, you can say that your bones will grow back and they are biodegradable. And we can also talk about maybe the experience by using a cast and these nanotubes. By using a nanotubes, the experience will be better and there will be no tissue rejection, because this is a tissue. It's just a nanotube. It's a very small thing. This is a very new technique. I know that you never seen this question in the exam before or even in your textbook. So when you see this kind of question, what you can do is you just find the keyword that you need in the question. In this question, you have 3. At least you have 3. You cannot write 4 advantages. You can already write 3 advantages. The disadvantages will be what? The disadvantages will be maybe they are very expensive and it requires high technology. Not everybody can do it, because if you want to use a machine, not every doctor are able to control the machine. Okay, so this is the disadvantages. Not everyone can operate the high technology stuff. So the advantages, you can see the material is lightweight. And then you can see the material has high mechanical strength. You can see the chemical component similar to collagen in body tissue. You can also say that do not experience tissue rejection. Because it's similar to human, obviously there will be no tissue rejection. If you want to say they are biodegradable, also can. But actually right now there's a lot of things that are also biodegradable. Not only these carbon nanotubes. If you go for a metal screw, there are certain metal and screw that are also biodegradable, but it's more expensive lah. If it's biodegradable, it means that you only do 1 time, you don't have to carry out the 2nd time. Because if you use a metal and screw, you have to carry out the 2nd time surgery in order for you to remove the plate and the screw out from the body. So right now, we have a biodegradable substances, but it's more expensive. And then the disadvantage, only one disadvantage, where you can say it's expensive. The material is expensive, or you can say high cost. And you can say it requires a high technology machine. high technology machine. High technology machine. Okay, done. Okay, any question from question 10, guys? Any question from question 10? I will wait for you to reply. No question, we're going to move to question 11. Yeah, I think I spelled this word wrongly. Machine. M-A-C-C-H-I-N-E-S. Machine. Okay, no question. We're going to move to question 11, okay? Let's move to the last question. Last question is not a question that you can choose. So for this question, for Mrsm paper, actually it's not very hard. It's because that this one is from 4 chapter 9. It's a very popular asked question. So they asked about this. 11.1 shows the Malaysian healthy plate menu with a concept called quarter, quarter, half. This concept is a quick visual technique that helps us to identify whether a dish that is healthy or unbalanced or otherwise. So what is quarter, quarter, half? Quarter means what? Quarter means quarter protein, quarter carbs, half veggie, vegetable, or you can say minerals, fibers, vitamin also can lah. Mineral, fiber, vitamins. Okay, it's called quarter, quarter, half. Based on this diagram, you can see lah, quarter, quarter, half. Quarter chicken, quarter rice, and then half is the banana salads, right? Fruits and vegetable, right? Discuss how the menu in 11.1 can help a person to stay healthy because you don't have enough, or you don't get excessive of rice, you don't get a high level of sugar, you don't get obesity, you get enough of vitamins, minerals, you're able to maintain your body health, is to maintain a good health. And you can talk about what vitamin has what purpose. Let's say you have vitamin C, they are able to maintain or increase immunity. You can see vitamin D is, or even calcium, is to strengthen your bones. Chicken, it's not a lot, right? So for chicken, it's not a lot, it's able to promote growth and development. So we have to talk about what is the advantages of eating suitable amount of chicken, rice, banana, and salads. Okay, so first you can see that quarter of plate comes from the carbohydrate, or whichever. It can be rice, it can be potatoes, it can be noodles, because this one they show you a rice, right? Maybe you can bracket a rice, and then you can see suitable amount of rice intake. It's for energy requirement. Excessive carbohydrate leads to obesity, or you can write high in sugar level, which is diabetes mellitus, or any cardiovascular disease also can, heart attack, or even stroke also can, because you have too much of sugar. But usually we just write obesity and diabetes mellitus, because if it leads to cardiovascular disease, it takes a very long time to have that, okay? And then next, another quarter is the chicken protein. Quarter of plate comes from protein. This is chicken. Based on this diagram, then it will be chicken. So it depends on diagram. Maybe they give you fish, maybe they give you other example, right? And then you can write suitable amount of protein intake for growth and development, or you can say repair, regenerate cell also can. Excessive protein leads to gout. Okay, what is gout? Gout, it means that you have uric acid in your joint. It's called gout. And then the other one, you can say half plate. Half plate comes from vitamin, mineral, fiber. Suitable amount of fruit and vegetable able to prevent constipation, or you can say suitable amount of vitamin C increases immunity of body. Or you can give any example of vitamin C, A, D, calcium, also can, whichever that you prefer. So if you do a lot of state paper, you will notice that this quarter, half question came out in a lot of state paper, if I'm not mistaken. So you can try this question, but I know that after today, right now, you can do this question by yourself already because it's not very hard to answer, right? Okay, now, done with this one, we're going to move to the B. It says, Table 2 shows a menu with recommended daily energy requirement of a pregnant mother and the menu with daily energy intake by Amira during pregnancy. So, based on Table 2, justify the menu taken by Amina whether it meets her daily energy requirement or not. Explain your answer. Now, we have to calculate the energy first. How to calculate the energy? You have to add all of these things together. You get your kilojoule. So, can anybody count this answer for me? Anybody count this for me? You add together and then you have your energy. So, meanwhile, we're waiting for your answer. We have to look at it. Okay, if you don't know, just look at it. You can see based on the left side is the recommended daily energy, right? So you can see that the person intake very little amount of rice, means lesser carbohydrate. Maybe the person has lesser energy, right? And you can also notice that the protein intake is also little. The butter intake is about one times more than that one. And then carbohydrate is also a lot. So, I mean, little. So you can see that the amount of carbohydrate and protein is very little, but butter is a lot. So obviously that this menu is not enough, right? I mean, based on this one, it's not enough, right? Because based on your common sense, you will know that the answer is not enough for her. But butter is not healthy, because when you have a lot of butter, the person will lead to cardiovascular disease. Without calculation, you have your answer. The answer is what? 11499. Okay, the answer is 11499 kilojoule. So if you compare the answer over here, you will know that the Amina daily energy intake is not enough because it's lesser than the recommended daily energy, right? So, I mean, it's not good lah, okay? It's not good. I mean, does not meet the requirements of your daily menu. So you can say that the total energy is 11499 kilojoule, which does not meet the requirement of daily energy, recommended daily energy lah. Okay, recommended daily energy. Then you can write she take very little rice and bread, less carbohydrate causes lesser energy can be produced. Lesser energy can be produced. And then next, we have the protein, right? The protein was not enough also, right? Egg. Okay, like the protein energy. So you can say she does not intake enough of protein, hence growth, or we can say cell growth or cell produce is lesser or slower lah, also can, is slower. And then you can also mention she takes more butter, more lipid in body, might lead to obesity, or you can write cardiovascular disease. Cardiovascular disease also can. Takes sounds a bit weird. Consume lah, okay? She consume more butter. Produce in fetus is lesser or slower because she's pregnant, right? Based on the question, she's a pregnant woman, right? So it will be slower or lesser. So maybe the baby is not, maybe the baby is malnutrition. Could be, maybe. Okay, now done with this one, we're going to move to the next question. If you have done with this already, this is, okay, now next one. 11.2 shows a weight loss campaign to control obesity through a gastric bypass procedure known as a bariatric surgery. So they say justify bariatric surgery in obese patient, discuss the advantages and disadvantages of surgical procedure. So what is the advantages of this one? What they do is bariatric surgery is, based on this diagram, you can see that they remove part of the stomach. So the stomach size becomes smaller, so the intake of rice becomes lesser. It's very effective for person who has obese because the food intake is lesser, right? So they will feel full very fast. This is the advantage. They can lose their weight, they can boost their confidence again. And this procedure, right, it can only be done when the person is very obese. If you are not very obese, right, I don't think that you have the need to carry out this process if you are not very obese now, okay? You don't have the need to carry out this procedure because it's not very cheap also in Malaysia. It's a legal thing to do lah. It's not a, it's, maybe it's considered as a plastic surgery because they are removal of part of the stomach because it's to boost your own confidence, right? The disadvantage is maybe they have acid reflux. They have a tendency of vomiting a lot because not enough space to fill in the food, right? Then they will have this acid reflux. And maybe they also have stomach ulcer. They have a consistency of always vomiting. That will be the disadvantage. Depends on whether you want to write 3 advantages or 2 advantages or anything. So usually advantage will have more than disadvantage lah, unless you think that this one got more disadvantage. Then you can write more disadvantage. So for the advantage for this, you can say that it consume lesser food as stomach size reduces, less calories absorbed, able to increase self-confidence. Your body able to reduce in weight. And then for the disadvantage of bariatric surgery is, as I mentioned, acid reflux, always vomit. And then you can also write that they have stomach ulcer. Causes acid reflux, constant vomiting. And then for every surgery, you can also write this answer, which is infection. So you can say might cause bacterial infection Or you can say they might have stomach ulcer. Might get stomach ulcer. If you want to write other answer also can. If you have any answer in mind, you can also write that. As long as they are acceptable lah. Okay? Don't write something that doesn't make sense. Then your answer is not correct in that way. Okay, now done with this, let's move to the next one. I think it's the last one already. 11.3 shows the lymphoma cell of a patient. The type of food taken by patient are important during treatment of this disease. So lymphoma cell is a cancer cell. It very commonly happens to a lot of youngsters. It happens on the lymph node, so they have a swollen of lymph node. They say it suggests a suitable diet that should be taken by this patient continuously over a period of time. So when a person has cancer, what are the food that you should eat? You should advise them to take. What are the things that you should be taken by the patient? Okay, number one, you can say they can take a lot of protein or even take a lot of carbohydrate because protein is able for them to grow new cells. Carbohydrate is for them to generate more energy to carry out their daily activities. They shouldn't drink alcohol because alcohol will lead to liver damage. When your liver is damaged, it means that you have no more smooth ER that carry out detoxification. And then you can also say that do not consume carcinogenic substances. What is a carcinogenic means? Carcinogenic, it means that cancer-causing substances. So stop taking those canned food, processed food, because those are processed carcinogenic substances. It will lead to more cancerous cells that are being produced. So you as a normal kid or normal human or a healthy person, you shouldn't intake a lot of this as well because it's not healthy. Okay, it's processed food like, okay, it's not healthy for you. So for this one, you can just write 5 marks. So you can just write 3 type of food, or maybe you have 4 type of food also can. So you can say consume more green vegetable. And then your answer is to increase vegetables and fruit lah. To increase immunity, or you can say it helps in digestion, prevent constipation. Next, you can also say that consume more protein to replace dead cell or repair damaged cell. Because it's a cancer, of course, you have damaged cell. You can also say that to provide don't have that. Provide growth and write in carbohydrate, okay? So you can say consume more carbohydrate. And then you can say provide sufficient energy during cancer treatment. If you want to write what food that you need to avoid, you can also say that avoid eating carcinogenic substances such as processed food. Because processed food, again, this increases the risk of cancer cell development. Cancer cell development. Okay, so we are done with Mrsm 2021 paper 2. Any question? You can ask me. No question, maybe the next time I will see you is I don't know when. But I'm planning to do SBP as well. But I don't know when, guys, because February is a month that I'm quite busy. And March is the month that you are quite busy. So I will find time. Maybe I will find another time. Hopefully, I have another time to do SBP lah. Hopefully lah, guys. Okay, hopefully. If I have time, then I will do SVP as well. So any question, you can ask me. No question, maybe I will see you guys when I see you guys. And for my own student, I will see you guys tomorrow as well. So any question, I'll wait for you guys to reply. If not, then good luck for your paper 3, okay? Paper 3 is on Tuesday, right? Go out, I think Tuesday, okay? Good luck for your paper 3. Just go and study whatever that you need to study. Okay? Can? Okay, I wait for you to reply first. And then I will end the stream. Hopefully that you have learned things as well. This has been 2 hours. I think about 2 hours. It's not bad. We can finish in 2 hours time. Like 2 hours, we can finish a set of paper. Okay, so I will see you guys when I see you guys again. Good luck for your paper 3. Good luck for whatever exam that you are, whatever things that you are having exam next week. I think, and also your English oral test, right? Okay, so bye guys. Bye. Bye guys. Bye Kevin. Bye Suji. Bye Mandy. Bye Yong Hao. Bye Caris. Bye. Bye everyone who is watching. Oh, bye Chin Sing. Oh, I really literally see my own student name. Like I better read out the name or how many of my students. Okay, bye guys. Bye. Bye. Bye.